Welcome, everybody, to the MC Squared podcast, episode 12. Correct?
Yeah. Let's go.
I got a fire in me. You're gonna set to burn. We got a world to see and all the time to learn.
Well, Jimmy, it's been a little while since we've gotten together, had a chat. I know that at least 3 of our fans have complained that there's been a gap.
Yes. And the other ones will never know.
We'll never know because, when these are all archived and put together, nobody pays attention to the distance between each podcast. But it just felt like it was right to take a nice little break in the summer a little bit. It felt good to just, go do something else. We went on vacation. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I heard that's
yeah,
awesome.
you guys took a week, went disc golfing.
We went disc golfing for a week in the beautiful city of Peoria, Illinois.
Yeah, actually, I think you were doing that at the same time we were in Colorado.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the only story I've got, because I've never been to Colorado and I haven't been very far west, except for this year. This year we've gone to Kansas twice, Oklahoma, and then we went to Colorado as a family for a week, and it was amazing. Honestly, you see those pictures of the mountains, and everyone will tell you, it doesn't do it justice, and it really doesn't. You have these great pictures you think you've taken because you're standing there looking at it,
Yeah.
and you look at the picture, and it's like, it looks okay, but I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But one of the days, the only quick story I'll share, actually there might be 2. The quick story I'll share is. We spent half a day at Winter Park, Colorado, which is obviously for the name. It's a big deal during the winter, but they also try to keep tourists coming back. They do like a slide, the gondola, putt-putt. I was like, okay, nobody goes to Colorado for putt-putt.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we did the Alpine Slide, and you can go down as many times as you want. So we started, and it's, I'm not saying I'm terrified of heights, but I don't like heights. So they have this ski lift that goes up. It was a little bit terrifying, I'll admit. And then you go down, and they give you these really heavy sleds, and you throw them on this. It's not a track, but it's like a half. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like you could, if you had water running down it, you could literally water slide on it probably. I mean, it's like a half track or something like that, half tube, whatever. Anyway, they have two there. One, they're both identical, but the left side is for beginners, and the right side is for the more experienced, because the more experienced aren't going to want to, take forever going all the way down. So you can brake, you can leave it alone. It's got a handle in the middle. You leave it alone, and it kind of slows itself down a little bit on the way. And then, I've got it totally backwards. But pushing forward accelerates it. You pull all the way back, and it brakes it, or you can leave it alone, and it kind of slows itself down. So, of course, we went in the experience track, even though I'd never gone down before, ever. And I'm just like, you know what? I might, whatever. So you kind of take it cautious the first time, and it is a blast. It is an absolute blast. I was so excited. We got back up on the ski lift, which was terrifying. I just would get over it. It was very beautiful, but it's way up there. So anyway, I get off it. We probably went down 5 or 6 times at least. And then, we're waiting around for Drew to be done. And we all had this probably actually pretty bad idea to just go one more time before we left.
Leave it all out on the track. Right?
Yeah. And I had accidentally hit my wife on the track by going a little too fast. Hit her sled. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I did get a pretty dirty look back at me, but I could, of course, I'm a husband. I couldn't help it. I was braking as fast as I could, and the brake wasn't working as well as I thought. Anyway, so I had been getting faster and faster. It was a blast. I got to tell you, it was so much fun. So the last time, I'm riding up in the ski lift, and we're looking down. Me and Andrea are riding up there, and we're looking down, and some guy wipes out. He just wipes out, and he's just, I mean, it's the danger of it. The real danger of this ride is that you don't lean into the curves. There are a lot of curves. If you lean into the curves, it will flip you, and the real danger is kind of just burning your skin. it's like road rash, or it'll take your skin off. I mean, you're just flying down there. So anyway, that was probably in my mind. It was a little unsettling because, anyway. So we get up there and we get set, and I'm just flying, and I mean, it is acceleration all the way. I'm hitting those curves, and I am just. It is a blast. But I was probably a little tired, maybe a little less safe than I should have been, and all of a sudden, that thing flipped on me, and
Oh my gosh.
I'm not ashamed to say it. I did yell a little bit. It wasn't hurt.
Scream?
Yeah, well, no, just a yell, a manly yell. It was very manly.
yell.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
And I'm sliding on my arms and knee down this thing, and I just know. I don't even feel it, but because I'm going so fast, probably 70, 80, 100 miles an hour. I don't know.
Of course, 100.
Yeah. And I know I'm losing skin by the inch, and I hear a voice from above, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't God. But it was, are you okay? And I was, yeah, I'm fine. I didn't look up to see it was because you have folks coming down behind you.
Oh, boy.
And you got to get back on that sled. So I get back on the sled, and I'm trying to, one leg is off, and I'm totally disoriented, but I'm trying to get done with this ride now because there's blood. I actually have some blood showing up. I'm like, what is happening here? And I had this hat on, this Colorado hat I was very proud of, and I got going again, probably a little fast, and that thing whipped off and I'm like, fine, I have wiped out. I'm probably, a mess, and now I lost this really cool hat. So I get to the bottom, and Andrea's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no. Carried the sled off, and I got blood everywhere, and we're trying to figure it out, and then some kid had run over my hat. And so they brought it back to me. And it's got skid marks on the top of it. So that's my souvenir of Colorado.
The classic, like the dad hat. The dad goes to the state, buys a hat with the state's name on it.
Absolutely.
So it's just so you can fit in with the locals. Because, the locals
are looking at you knowing
they wear the Colorado
knowing
hat.
you're a tourist. Yeah, so that was,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
And so that, unfortunately, was a little bit early in the trip. So I spent quite a lot of time in pain trying to bandage them up. I lost a lot of...
Was there screaming after?
No, absolutely
after,
not. No, absolutely not. No.
I've never seen an Alpine Slide like that. The one that we saw in Tennessee was actually on a track, and there was no way to come off of it.
Yeah.
It was on like a rail track, but man, that sounds like a lot more exciting than what
It was so
Tennessee.
fun. I totally want to go do it again. Totally want to go do it again.
I thought you were racing your wife.
Well,
There was some kind of competition involved.
so
why
she
you
would
were going so fast, trying to show off like you
that's the rumor. I don't know
Okay.
that it's totally true. She would leave in the same track ahead of me. So we weren't side by side, but she would leave ahead of me. And if you were fast enough, and if the person in front of you wasn't fast enough, you could catch up to them.
So
that was maybe what I was possibly trying to do.
But at the end, she was waiting for you to come down.
Yeah, it didn't
because
work.
you had-
It didn't work.
That's awesome.
So anyway, well, we had a good time and everything. But as on our way back, so the day before we found out about the power outage, the storm that went through, and we still had another. We didn't know, but we still had another 3.5 days of no power once we got back. So, but you have that feeling that your house is vulnerable, even though there's no power. You want to get back to it and take care of the stuff. So we did. And at that same time, I think all that smoke was coming through, and you guys were playing in that, weren't you?
Yeah, that was so weird because the Canada smoke came like straight down the center of Illinois, and then took a right turn right over Terre Haute area. And when I looked at it, they actually stopped disc golf play one day in Peoria because of it. And we were kind of like a little bit upset, and we were thinking this is just like an Illinois thing, I mean, really, that's what I was thinking the whole time. We were like, we're getting too close to Chicago.
They're a little crazy over there.
We're getting a little too close to Chicago. But then, they stopped play for some of the courses, but our kids played, and it never got above a certain level. So now I've learned that you can get on a website and look at the air quality every day. So I now know where they get their information from. But really, like one of those days, we came back to the hotel room, and you could feel it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we were inhaling some junk. we have healthy lungs, but we were inhaling some junk during that time. But yeah, I actually drove through that crazy storm, which was insane.
Really?
That day, Allison stayed with the two younger kids at the hotel, and they had one round in the morning, and I took the two older kids to the round, and I picked up Connor, and we came back, and we were going straight towards it, and it was black in front of us. It was like noon, right? It hit in Peoria before it hit here. We were driving straight into it, and it looked real bad. And we were going into it. I mean, and it was one of those things where you can't see in front of you, like a whiteout if you're in snow. And I felt so bad for this person in front of us. I mean, because she was in a convertible Mustang, and it caught it and flopped it open. And so she was driving with that wind in a convertible, and she got up under a overpass and then stopped there, and she got out and put it back. And I thought, oh, that's terrible. But we were driving, and we were at a big vehicle, thank goodness, going straight into it, and we stopped for a little bit under that overpass, and then I'm just impatient. So I just got to keep going because I know that the storm's going to come through. The longer I wait, the longer it's going to take. So we started driving again, and I was 10 miles an hour, blinkers on. And then we got into the town of Peoria, and there was water everywhere because the deluge. Wow. And there were cars driving through it, and we kind of, it was really crazy. And then I was telling my kids when I was driving through it, yeah, I've driven through stuff like this before. This isn't that bad, it's pretty bad, when you're driving like this, kids, you got to look right over the hood, look at the lines. I couldn't see any lines. It was that bad. And the good thing was there wasn't the crazy people flying past you.
Yes.
But then we got done, and we got back to the hotel, and later on that night I was like,
I don't know if I've ever been.
I don't think I've ever been anything that bad. Let me rephrase what I said earlier.
You just witnessed this,
kids. That was really bad. Okay. And don't do what your dad did. Right. Pull over the side of the road. And then we later heard about it just annihilating Terre Haute.
Did they postpone any of the rounds with that storm? Or?
Yeah, one round because it just came through, and then that was it. Yeah. And they didn't get any of the damage with the trees that we did here. I mean, it ravaged. I mean, Park. Yeah. I mean, the course, I'm just thinking of disc golf courses. The one at Brazil. Yeah. It got beat up bad too. A lot of those old trees, and it's really weird. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before, and I know you noticed this, but it almost took the trees and split them down the center. Yeah. So I think, and I'm not a meteorologist, although I'd really love to be one. So if I ever have a second thing that I can do in my life, I want to be a meteorologist or a storm chaser. Okay. But it's almost like the wind came straight down because it hit those trees at such a different angle than what they're used to. And it took normal trees and just split them down the center.
It's really crazy.
And it's just that's really odd. And, praise the Lord. We were not in town at the time. And our weird thing is our house never lost power.
Yeah. That's good.
And the other side of the street did.
Yeah.
And we came home and, we have a totally dysfunctioning air conditioner right now, but
Do you really?
I mean, it's like our constant battle. It's because I YouTube fix it over and over again. We had a guy come out to look at it, and he goes, "Oh yeah, these wires are flipped in the wrong spot." And I was like, "Oh, that was me." So he did that, but then it broke a few days later. Yeah. So then, it's the constant battle. And then I really questioned why I did not go into HVAC myself, because I thought you could make really good money doing this right now. Yeah. But anyway, that's where we've been, and back to work now, and back to the normal flow. It's everybody. I mean, I know this is kind of the way it is everywhere in Vigo County, but I mean, it seems like the public school, they're closing those summers down, and so many people are trying to take vacations. Yeah, and it's got to be before August 10th or 11th, and actually looking at some changes to stuff that we're doing with our department, we have a lot of people that are in their upper 20s, 30s, and 40s, and this is the time they can take a vacation with their kids because of school.
And don't you think, too, with COVID, because that was restricted. You couldn't take a decent family vacation for so long. And that was the one thing you felt like you wanted to do. You were locked in your house. Yep. It feels like it's normal now. We can go do whatever we want, and people are just... They're taking the trips.
And I think that they're looking forward to it, and they really... I think that people are just really enjoying
Yeah.
that. Like maybe it was a routine before,
Right.
but now it feels like a real getaway. I mean, I know during COVID, I guess you could have got away, but you're going to go to some other place that you
Right.
don't know what kind of restrictions they're going to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people saved vacation time during that time, and they want to use it now. So we try to let them use it in ways we can, but it seems like it's all packed in, and then all back
Right.
August 10th, everybody's back to normal,
Yep.
But it's too bad. I wonder if they'll ever go to like year-round school, where they take a really big break like a nice break in the fall.
Doesn't Japan do that? I think they do.
Or I think Indianapolis does, don't they?
Do they?
Maybe not. Maybe Japan goes year-round, but I know in Indianapolis they have like large chunks of weeks off.
Yeah.
Which really is nice for parents who take vacations, because you could say, oh, we can do one, in October, or then we can do one in, like, I guess spring break, know. But if you want to go south or something, but yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they'll ever change that as they move around. And I think a lot of people have realized that, you don't necessarily have to be in school every single day the place is open, and so if they were going to work with those teachers, they can be able to do stuff outside of that.
Yeah.
Well, we know that.
Yeah. So, well, so let's switch gears a little bit. I was going to ask you a question, and not just because I wanted to talk about myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question because I was thinking I'm not sure. I know you. Okay, I want to talk about politics, and I want to talk about our perception or our view of politics, our ideology. I mean, I've always been conservative. You've probably always been conservative. But I have to say, I've had a pretty big, eye-opening or shift or change in the way I've thought from the way, when I was younger to now. And I just wondered if maybe in the past 6-7 years, and I think this has happened for a lot of folks, is what I'm asking. I know you voted for Trump. I voted for Trump too.
Yeah.
But prior to that, has there been any kind of metamorphosis in your political views, or has it all kind of stayed the same?
Well, I can go back to when I started voting, and so my dad really wanted to start voting. And I remember, I don't know if a lot of other kids, when they turned 18, that was that big of a deal. My dad was like, you need to sign up, you need to go vote. So I remember him putting a real big emphasis on that. So I remember going to Sandcut at the time to vote when I was 18, and I showed up and asked for what ballot. And, it's just the firehouse, whatever. And I asked for a Republican ballot. And they said, oh, you're one of them. It was, I was like, whoa. I really didn't know what it meant at the time. 18 years old, I didn't really understand a lot of it. And then I've always kind of been right. And so I've always voted Republican for quite a while. I think in recent years, let's say in the last 10, I started questioning a lot of different things. Yeah. And then so I started looking more on the ballot, and I purposely don't vote straight ticket, I'll be honest. And I know some people encourage that. I don't vote straight ticket. I make sure, and I understand now after helping you run, how much time people put into campaigns. And I want to make sure when I make that decision, it's not a straight ticket. I want to look at every name.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot that goes into putting that name on there, and there's a lot of American lives that have been sacrificed for that name to be on there. So I go through each one, and I definitely don't vote straight ticket. And I think, unfortunately, in recent years, I wouldn't say that I lean the other way, but I do think that I definitely take every decision very, very personally. I mean, I don't know how to say it a different way, but I think very, very much on each one of those decisions. Yeah. And I really don't look necessarily always at party. If I'm not for sure, I can go by party. I mean, I'm socially conservative. I mean, I could easily say that, but I don't believe either have the answer. Right. And honest and really, the answer for politics is usually more politics. And I don't believe that, and this isn't in more recent years, I don't believe the answer for the world is in politics. Right. Because they're always going to have a political answer. Right. I think that the answer for the world and the problems is inside of us.
Absolutely.
And I know that could be like, and that's Jesus Christ that lives inside of us, and that's where I believe. But I think that politics is something that just kind of gets in the way of those different giftings that people have.
Right.
And I think that people can have giftings under different political parties, although I think it probably is more difficult in some than others. But I really am very intentional about who I choose.
Yeah. Well, we need more people like you in the political arena. That's for sure. Because I think a lot of folks don't pay any attention.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
a lot of folks don't vote. It is astounding, especially statistically on the right.
Yeah.
Voter participation is terrible. I mean, you've got a lot of folks organized on the left. They're consistent. It's a religion to them. It's very, very important.
Yeah.
They vote. They vote all the time.
Yeah.
Half the time they'll protest. They're in people's face. Not all of them, but
Yeah.
they're all very active as a rule. So then on the right, it takes like a President Trump. It takes a presidential election. We're not showing up for the municipal elections. We're not showing up for the midterms.
Yeah.
We're showing up for the big ones, or whatever, when we
Yes.
think it's going to make a difference. And I think that's a tragedy. Every single time there's an opportunity to vote is an opportunity for us to choose our leaders and the government.
Yes.
And then the sad thing is, those are the folks that aren't voting are the ones complaining.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you don't have a right to complain if you're not going to be informed and then vote. Mm-hmm. I was like you. I was ready to vote at 18, and I was very politically active. There was a picture of me in the paper, the local paper in Spencer, at a Lincoln Day, all dressed up in a suit and a mullet, hair down past my shoulders.
Yeah.
Shaking Congressman John Myers' hand at a Lincoln Day dinner. And a lot of folks around here will know who John Myers was, because this was where he lived, was Vigo County. I started a Christian Coalition chapter when I was 18. I've always been very politically. I mean, my upbringing, when I went to a Christian school when I was in kindergarten. And I remember every day in kindergarten, we prayed for the Iran hostages.
Wow.
I mean, that we did it every day for a long time, because they were there almost a year. Mm-hmm. And I remember, we prayed for President Carter. We prayed for the Iranian hostages. Yeah. I'm a little kid, and I remember the election of 1980 was going on, and I heard my parents saying that it looked like Jimmy Carter was going to lose, mm-hmm. and I was upset. Which is pretty funny, because we'd been praying for him. I mean, I didn't know. I was just a kid, and my parents, who had voted for Carter because he was a Christian, said, "Oh no, it's probably okay. We think Reagan might be a better choice." And of course, our prayers were answered. The Iranian hostages, before he was even sworn in or released, and then Pride in America came back. So I grew up in the Reagan years, and I remember going to Washington for Jesus, where all the Christians would be on the Washington Mall for 24 hours praying for the country, and he addressed us via video, but he thanked us, said, "You're the salt of the earth. You're the reason why we're going to win this fight for life," and pro-life president. And he was so inspiring, and just it was so. You just believed in Mayberry, you believed in America and the goodness of who we were as a country because of him. I mean, he just exuded that and lived it. He'd lived it prior, and Ronald Reagan was a wonderful president. And I honestly, looking back, I have had such a change politically. And I would have to say it started with the second term of George W. Bush, when the economy started to collapse. With we had the 2008 financial crisis, and things that were liberal policies are what created that. I mean, we can go into that at some other time. Everybody wants to talk about it, but it's true. It was a mortgage policy put in by Jimmy Carter, encouraged and strengthened by Bill Clinton. And it was basically, you couldn't afford a house, you shouldn't get a house, but we're going to give you a house because we're going to fill a quota and we're going to put a gun to the head of the banks. They're going to loan it to you. So these banks would then pass on these very suspect mortgages. And eventually it collapsed. In the bubble of the housing bubble collapsed. But anyway, when I saw him lay out the buying of the banks and the bailing out of these investment companies, and people don't maybe remember that because Barack Obama came in, and when Barack Obama came in, he helped purchase GM, which is just a bizarre government purchase. I mean, it's fascism. But government does not purchase private companies to keep them afloat. But Bush had laid the groundwork for it and had done it himself, and I was like, what's the difference? Yeah. And I started to go, are these guys working together? And I remember John McCain suspended his campaign in the middle of all that. And I was not a huge fan of McCain, but I thought he's going to be better than Obama. And he suspended his campaign. He was going to Washington. He was going to make this big stand in this whole crisis. And his stand was to increase the bailouts. And I'm like, what's going on here? And that's when things started to change. I mean, I was pro-Iraq war. I thought, yeah, makes sense. He's terrible. There's probably were weapons of mass destruction. I was all for that. And as the years have gone on, I've begun to have a major shift. And I'm like, Trump didn't engage us in any of these endless wars. And I remember Rush Limbaugh talking about this, and he actually talked about this shortly before he passed away, but he said there are people who are vested in our government to make sure, and in the private sector, they're vested to make sure that we are always at war. They need that war machine to go on. It's what Eisenhower warned about, the industrial military complex, and it's we need a war to build the weapons. And then the weapons are produced by American companies. We need those contracts, so we've got to continue, and it's just a continual process. And he said another thing too, and this is really interesting. After World War II, we had a mentality. Prior to World War II and prior to World War I, we were isolationists as a country. Prior to World War II, when Woodrow Wilson came along. He pushed us, it was going to be a Christian war, whatever. He pushed us into World War I. He wanted us to get involved. He didn't want us to get involved, he said publicly, but he wanted us to get involved. They always do. Because it's an opportunity for these guys to organize society. It's just a side thing, but it was an organized society thing. They had sedition laws and all kinds of stuff. They jailed the press during Woodrow Wilson's. I mean, he was actually a terrible president, but we were very isolationist as a country. It's our tradition. And we began to have all these folks coming back from World War I, and they'd had these experiences around the world. So League of Nations was a complete failure. So, we're going to bring about the United Nations. So it was still this we started to begin to, we've seen this documentary about the immigration policies that were in between World War I and World War II. It was very stringent. I mean, almost no one was allowed into the country for like 30 years. We shut legal immigration down completely. So World War II happens, and the mentality of Americans after it was radically changed. We felt obligated to rebuild Europe. We found troops in South Korea, because obviously the Korean War happened a few years later, but we had our troops in South Korea, we had our troops in Germany permanently. And having American troops around the world to police nations or to keep peace, and NATO was formed, and all this stuff. And I'm not saying all of that is negative, but the mentality was, hey, we're a superpower, so we have a responsibility to involve ourselves in conflicts around the globe to whatever it is, bring peace, further democracy. And man, my mentality, I'm like, what have we accomplished with all this American blood, sweat, and tears? And I think that I think America has shifted away from that, and so now we're finding ourselves. We had 4 years of Trump where we were told North Korea was going to be this terrible thing. It became nothing. He dealt with it with good diplomacy. It's literally the Teddy Roosevelt philosophy, which is speak softly and carry a large stick. That was Teddy Roosevelt. And he's absolutely correct. You don't need to be, bombastic. You can be nice, whatever. But if we come, buddy, we're coming through. I mean, it's you're going to remember an encounter with the United States. Yeah. We found ourselves embroiled in Afghanistan. We found ourselves embroiled in Syria. We found ourselves, when Trump came in, and he was able to keep peace. We had 4 years of peace. This thing with Ukraine that's happened. Would not have occurred if Trump was president. His diplomacy and his foreign policy would have taken care of it. So I think folks right now, and I'm in this boat, see the Bidens and the establishment Republicans, because see, the's no difference. This is what's so disappointing, right. Jimmy. Yeah, I know. Are dragging us into World War III over there, and you're like, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. We're now sending American troops over there. We're stationing them over there. About 3,000 of them, I think last month Biden called up. And it's a real threat and real danger. Anyway, so my mentality has completely changed. I'm looking back now and I'm like, why did we go into Iraq? Mm-hmm. Why did we do that? Honestly, people that accused George W. of avenging his father's defeat there or his father's mistake or whatever, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, or you can lay the blame at the feet of the CIA. They purposely lied to him and said there were weapons of mass destruction. This is this whole thing that's been exposed. Tucker Carlson's been a part of this. All of the stuff that we found out about, the things that have happened to Trump or conservative Republicans tied to him since then. You're like, we're fighting something that, you're right, it is not a political solution. Yeah. We've got stuff behind the scenes. These folks are not on the ballot. You can vote Republican all you want, but they're not on the ballot. The head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, they're not there. Yeah. And they're the ones really causing a lot of damage right now. So I know. That's the eye-opening that I've had. And I ran for office. I believe in godly people running for office. I will totally vote that way, and I will totally support people. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't run again for something if God led me to do. But we need a cultural revolution.
Yes.
We really do. And if you think about it, think about what happened in the 70s with the Jesus movement. So you had a Jesus movement, but you also had a very radical leftist free love, make love, not war, Vietnam protests, a lot of drugs, a lot of rebellion in the late 60s. And you saw them migrate, that same group of people migrate into the public schools as teachers, migrate into the university. A lot of them moved into journalism and into the press and into the media, and a lot of them moved into politics. I mean, Bill Clinton was literally one of those people. And you saw this whole migration of this philosophy. It was really an anti-God philosophy, anti-restriction. Don't tell us, and anti-American, which is really sad. But at the same time, you had a cultural revolution of the Jesus movement going on at the same time. And when it was kind of God's answer to that, unfortunately, they were not politically astute, which is why I think it's important that we as Christians be wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. Yeah. Because it's important to have wisdom. So all these young new believers, they're so excited when Jimmy Carter comes around, because Jimmy Carter's a Christian, and man, we're going to vote Christian. He was a Sunday school teacher. He was a very spiritual guy, and I'm not saying he was a bad person, but politically he was a complete and total disaster, and his philosophies were Marxist. He had no business being president or anywhere near a political office, but culturally a revolution had taken place, and it ushered him into office. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a political movement. It was a spiritual movement. And they corrected. They realized their mistake. And man, they were the Reagan supporters of the 80s. I mean, those Jesus people. So I'm like, I see this happening again. I see a cultural revolution going on now. I mean, we there's 5,000 people baptized in the Pacific Ocean the other day. I mean, it's just phenomenal amounts of a spiritual awakening. That is the answer to me, and I believe you feel the same way.
I do.
Let's see a generation that goes where we've had it. Quit telling me I can be whatever gender I want to be. Quit telling me that I decide my own purpose, or I decide what I'm going to be, or whatever I feel for the day. I want to know truth. And is there a God? And was I created with a destiny and a purpose? And if so, I want to know what that is. I want to know Him. Yeah. And that's really the exciting thing, I think, that really is going on right now. I do think God has an answer to what's been occurring.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, I 100% down that road. I think that, as we've probably said before, what Satan means for bad, God can turn around for good every time.
Absolutely.
So the people that these, I think this generation is being told, you go with your way you feel with this, right, or how you're doing it this day or that day, or look what this person's doing. There is a search for truth.
Yeah.
And I really think that's what's going to change everything, because you can't live your life. I don't believe we're made as human beings to live on a boat where the water's going up and down and up and down. Yeah. I think we're built to find truth.
Yeah, I agree.
And some people will find their truth maybe in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But there is one truth that will go and is always anchored.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lord gives the truth, that perfect truth, and it's the only peace that comes these people.
That's right.
I mean, so I don't know. I think that there's a lot of the negative spiritual aspect of it is trying to make everybody feel this, right, go with what feels good, but it's actually making people seek truth more than they had before. And I think that's straight out of COVID too.
Yeah. Yeah.
People want truth.
I agree.
People want truth. I mean, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of things that happened. And some things that you believe, some things you don't believe, some things you did believe.
Yeah.
And then later came up, they weren't true.
That's right.
Some things that weren't true that you said were not true, but then now you find the truth. So I think what we want as people, as human beings, we just want solid truth. I just don't want to be lied to.
Well, don't you think that if you had your eyes open at all through this last several years going through COVID, if you are still believing that the government is not lying to you, or that it always tells you the truth, then you're probably hopeless, because it was as clear as the nose on your face. Yeah. They lied to us, and they continued to lie to us. I mean, the stuff that's being exposed now about how the FBI was literally colluding with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, telling them what they could or could not say, coordinating, and knowing that what they were telling them was a lie. Mm-hmm. And I think even on the other end, I mean, we blame social media. I think they wanted, I think they were, I feel like if it was Trump's FBI and they were in there telling them, you need to promote ivermectin, you need to promote, some of these cures that we know work, I think they would have been resistant to it. I think they were partners. I'm not putting all the blame on the FBI and the DOJ and Homeland Security, but that is outrageous that our government was working hard to censor truth to the American people. We were absolutely lied to by the CDC to this day. Absolute fallacies. And what's sad is you had a lot of the medical community joining in. And how do you trust these people again? We were in an emergency situation where the emergency was that we needed truth.
Yeah.
People were dying from mistreatment because we were being told the wrong things. Yeah. So the emergency we were going through in COVID was more a propaganda emergency. We needed to know what was going on. What is happening here? Mm-hmm. And, people might not have known right at the beginning. We get that. We got a process of discovery. But once it was known, oh my gosh, if you came and you had a narrative that was opposite of what the government wanted said, you were shut down.
I know.
And that's so to me, I think it has worked as there's a lot of folks that have gone through COVID and go, you know what? I'm sorry. I cannot trust the government now. I have no idea. Anytime they say something, it's going to be, there's no way it's true. Mm-hmm. I mean, to this day now, so, not to shift gears too much, but I mean, bag of cocaine in the White House. And we have no idea. It is the most secure place on the face of the earth. It is there are more security cameras and security all over. And you're going to tell me that a bag of cocaine found its way into the secure area of the White House and nobody has a clue it's Hunter Biden's. Everybody knows this. We all know it. Mm-hmm. We've seen the pictures. The dude's a snorter. I mean, it's just there's no other way around it. And the fact that they won't tell us whose it is. Oh, we're going to close the investigation. We don't have any idea whose this was. We all know. We now do know because of this. Because nobody trusts them.
Yeah.
And that's not a great place for a people to be, that they cannot trust their government.
I think now this is I agree with most of it, but I think there were a lot of people who were trying to tell the truth.
Oh, I agree.
But were fed information that was not true.
Absolutely.
And so then
but are their eyes open now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I really believe a lot of them are, but they're silent about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that they had principles that they relied on for a long time, maybe not godly principles, maybe some godly principles, but they relied on those, but then they used information that was false. They believed it. They took their credibility that they had, maybe medical professionals, and
put it on the line
and said, this is what I'm told we have to do. I have to abide by this. If this person doesn't do this, this is what I'm told is right. Because I mean, medicine is, as it's always been, there's textbooks, right? There's textbooks, the way to treat things, all these different ways to treat things. And so, let's go back to some studies, or let's go back to this. And let's go back to what the books say, what they've been doing for years.
Right.
And that's where they found their truth in that. But they were being fed information that was false, but they projected it as truth.
Oh, absolutely.
They took their reputation
as,
I mean, in the medical profession, I mean, we have got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there's not a lot of trust anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's still some people that trust, but from this community, we were saying things sometimes that we were being fed that information.
Yes.
And we had to regurgitate it because somebody asked you a question. But I wonder if when all of it started, and I worked in the middle of it, and I remember it was really odd because we changed the way we were treating people, and we were doing things different than before, and it was all based upon
the CDC or
a recommendation.
Yes, or Fauci was saying
upon aerosolization. So we changed the way we did almost everything in there. And then when you change the way we've isolated patients for a long time, and we now say we have to isolate different, you're like, okay, well, this is weird. So we're changing this up.
Yeah.
And then we changed something else up. And then we were hostages to the recommendations.
Absolutely.
Because
you'd be fired if you weren't.
Well, yeah, you have to go by something.
These folks would be losing their jobs.
You had to go by something. And I wonder if there's a silent group out there of free thinkers. Yeah. I mean, people that are like, man, I stepped in that once. I'm not doing it again.
Maybe we shouldn't have killed Grandma in isolation and let her see Grandpa and the kids before she passed.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
That's if the, I don't know. If there is the truth that ever truly comes out about, I don't know if it ever will, because it'll be one of the most damning things.
But it's
across
there.
The country.
I mean, it's there if people want to see it.
But I don't know if it'll ever be truly exposed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because but
don't you think truth is like that? I think that's the I think that's the battle with truth. It has to be sought for. You have to treasure it. You have to seek it out. I mean, honestly, I feel like it's pretty available right now. If you really want it, it's out there. Peter McCullough is a great MD researcher to take advantage of. I mean, there's tons of resources out there where you can find the science.
Yeah.
Regardless of what Fauci said, he wasn't science. He is the science. Well, science is corrupt if he's the science.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good people out there in science that are trying to
Absolutely.
actually find
Yep.
cures
But
and all
what's
these
so
different
sad,
things.
Jimmy, is kind of what you're saying. You have a lot of well-meaning people
Yeah.
who care about people,
Yes.
who are in the medical industry because they're called.
Yes.
I mean, they're every industry has folks that are just getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of folks that they're there because they love people. They want to take care of people, and they were lied to.
They were lied to.
And the problem is, where's their foundation? I mean, if they come to grips with the fact that the CDC and the medical directors from Indianapolis and all of these folks were all following these guidelines that we know are completely anti-science, anti-medical, and with the absolute wrong things we should have been doing. If they'll come to grips with that, then what? I mean, they depend on these folks.
Yeah.
This is where they get their guidance, and so you feel sorry for them. But I think there were a lot of people that were fooled. I mean, when it started, none of us knew exactly. I mean, it didn't make
exactly right.
sense.
No, you're exactly
but we
right.
were all going, okay, we'll take 2 weeks off and not go outside our. I mean, this thing must be horrible. I mean, we were all on board until things started to not pass the smell test, and I think we don't need to rehash COVID necessarily, but it was an episode in our nation's history that, you're right, has totally turned an entire generation to be skeptics of their government, and that's not a bad thing. We're in the place we're at right now.
Yeah. I know.
So
What Satan meant for bad.
that's right. That's right. Well, there's church shakeups. I mean, you talk about the shakeups that happened in the church, and they're still happening to this day. Leaders are being removed.
As many should be.
Yeah, and they should be. And honestly, there needs to be apologies, because my stance always was, from the very beginning of this in the church, my stance was always this: the Bible, the Word of God, is the standard. It's what we follow. Jesus is who we follow. Okay. So when Jesus says in the Word, do not neglect the meeting of yourselves together, and even more when you see the day approaching, the end times, keep meeting together. It says, if anyone's sick, lay hands on them, and they'll be healed, or whatever. The continual admonition to lay hands on the sick is in the New Testament. It's in the Word of God. And we went the exact opposite way. We made excuses for it. We're keeping people safe, whatever. And church leaders ran the opposite way. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And that, to me, was the church's worst hour in this whole thing. And I honestly blame the church more than I blame anything else, because, oh my gosh, I heard so many times. For once, I heard it 1,000,000 times. Oh my gosh, Christians, we should obey every precept given by man. We should obey our leaders and blah, 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 blah. Okay, then in wisdom, we need to understand that our leaders are breaking the law. We have a constitutional right to assemble. They don't have any say in that. So constitutionally, they're the lawless ones. And said the church, it's much easier. Go the other way. Let's be accommodating. And again, not to rehash it all, but the earthquake that took place culturally there was still being felt, and it's honestly right now, I think it's good stuff that's come from it.
I do too.
We're never going back to that again. No. Society wants to do it, but we are never going back to that. And I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone that didn't get the shot that regrets not getting the shot. So
pretty accurate.
That's enough that should say something right there.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Well, we you know what? I'll tell you what, and it's one of those things, because we all talked a lot during that time. You know that, right? I mean, all the COVID times, we talked through all of this. I mean, we talked it to ad nauseum. We were done. I mean, we'd all. And now, in retrospect, looking back, it's still as important as the time we were in it. It is still it's a liberty issue. It was a freedom and liberty issue. It is more important than anything else. And isn't that funny? 9/11 was a little bit like that too. In retrospect, looking back, when Homeland Security and the Patriot Act were passed, I was all for those things. I was actually not for Homeland Security. I'm like, why do we need another big brother? What's this about? And it's been to fruition. It's a terrible thing. But it was always on the argument of safety. It's always on safety and security, and that's where you lose your freedom. When somebody argues, hey, I know it violates your rights, but man, we got to keep people safe. We got to keep people safe. And that's when liberty dies. That's where it goes away. So, well, I think we've covered enough issues tonight, don't you think, Jimmy?
I think so. That was good. That was good.
All right. So, if folks want to get a hold of us, good way to do it is
reach out to us at our Gmail at themcsquaredpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, which we need some posting on that.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So, follow us on Instagram also. We have a YouTube channel. We're posting the audio on our...
Well, it's on any major podcast service. So the host service we use is Buzzsprout, but it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on any of the major ones.
Whichever one's easiest for you to use.
Yeah.
And then we're also posting the video, which is just pretty much us talking to one another.
I know.
On YouTube. So if you like to watch the video and listen to the audio, we do that same thing. Some people like pictures, some people like the audio.
Yes.
So we're trying to reach all of our audience. I think our YouTube channel has 15 subs at this point.
So that needs to pop up a little bit.
Yeah,
but you know what? That's going to happen. It takes a while, and we haven't had the channel out there for very long. We started the audio version. We did at least 5-6 episodes before we ever did I think about 6 episodes before we did the video. As a part of it.
And the video's kind of an extra added difficulty to it. But if you want to help the channel, share it on your social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah, share the Spotify or Apple podcast.
Yep.
You could also get on YouTube and share it.
Send us a comment on there.
Yeah.
We see that.
Yeah, I know if you.
I usually respond to it because Jimmy doesn't, but that's all right.
I sometimes So, but comment, but share it if you want to help out the channel a little bit and get us out a little bit more.
Yep.
We would appreciate that. I mean, we only have a few friends,
Yeah.
so probably not even as many as that listen. So, we appreciate you though for listening, and we're gonna get back on the roll with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Filming every couple weeks, hopefully. Filming audio and video.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're interested, if you want to be a guest, let us know.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some political guests on, but if you got something to say, it'd be kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily.
We can always edit it out, and then no one has to listen.
If we don't agree with it, we'll cut it out and make it seem like you say something really terrible.
Just kidding.
And then, we wouldn't do that to you. But no, I mean, we're open. As you kind of found out tonight, I mean,
we cover everything.
We do cover everything.
Yeah, we do. So
thanks for listening.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time. Later.
Bye.
I got a fire in me. You're gonna set to burn.